Welcome to Lantern Voices, a podcast by Lantern Publishing and Media. The opinions and information expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Lantern Publishing and Media Incorporated. Hello, welcome to another episode of Lantern Voices. I'm Luisa, your host, and today's interview is with author Verena Brunschweiger. She's the author of the book Do Childfree People Have Better Sex? That we published in 2022. Our conversation today goes beyond people's sex lives. We talked about the child-free movement, veganism, the impacts of human overpopulation in the environment, and pro-natalist governments. A special heads up this time. We always try to keep our conversations here on Lantern Voices appropriate for all ages. But we also want to encourage our guests to have an honest exchange and share our platform with them so they can feel comfortable to speak freely. It is practically impossible to talk about the child-free movement without addressing issues that impact people that can get pregnant. So please be advised that this episode contains mentions of sexual abuse, violence, threats to life and personal safety, self-harm, and that sometimes swear words were used. If you're sensitive to any of these topics, it is totally okay to skip this episode. Please take care of yourself. Finally, don't forget to stay until the very end so you can hear our special announcements. Without further ado, let's jump into our interview. All right, Verena, welcome to Lantern Voices. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks a lot for having me. I'm quite happy.
I will kick off our interview asking you if you can tell us a little bit about your activist trajectory, what led you to the first publication of your book, Childfree, Not Childless, a manifesto in Germany in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, and later the book that we published in 2022.
Yeah, well, as you said, you are a woman in your 30s getting bullied all the time. Oh, well, when are you going to have kids? I had the same experience, and I think almost every woman on earth in her 30s has this very same experience. And I was so fed up with that I decided to write a book about it, actually, because I really dived into this whole project, so to speak, and I found the chart I always harp on about. How much carbon emissions you can save if you have one child less, blah, blah, and all the other environmental, political, and philosophical aspects of not reproducing, which in the end struck me as so massive that I thought I must have been crazy having considered that in the first place. But that's what pronatalist pressure from all the sides does to you. It really messes with your head. And I thought myself, yeah, maybe one child would be nice. Who knows? And I have a lovely husband and a job and this and that, and everything is so perfect. Yeah, but why fulfill this normal biography? It's really boring and actually reactionary if you think about it long and hard. And so luckily I decided against that. It was the best decision of my life. And also writing proved war actually a cool idea because nobody asks me anymore. And I could even help some others. I got lots of readers who wrote to me and said, oh, thanks for writing that. Thanks for putting that out there. I feel the same. This resonates with me. And one woman even wrote to me, I saved her from committing suicide because she lives in a Bavarian village and everyone has kids and she has so much pressure from her own family. And she just didn't see a way out and she was really contemplating suicide. And then she said, someone gave her my book and she read that. And then she was kind of relieved and motivated to fight back. And it's so sad that she should have to fight back against something like that in the 21st century in Germany. And I continued with this fight. Many people encouraged me and I myself saw, well, it's really an important topic and nobody in Germany talked about that. So I felt the calling and I still feel it. And I go on and it's really an important project. I'd say it's what I'm here for, basically.
I was very surprised when I heard on your book, when I was reading in your book, and you mentioned how pro-birth, pro-children Germany is. I wasn't expecting it to be this much, especially with the whole backlash that you faced when you first published your book.
Many people don't know that about Germany, but it's really bad. And it's even worse because we have our new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. You wouldn't believe what kind of guy that is. Well, okay, Trump is some level, but he's He's close, I'd say, because, for instance, he voted that rape in marriage shouldn't be a punishable crime. And I was 17 when he did that, and I thought, oh, I hope this guy will never get into power. And now I have him as our new head of state. How cool is that? And he really cuts funds on feminist projects, etc. He's a real macho anti-feminist, I have to say that. And so it gets even worse. What about our AfD party, the Nazi follow-up party, so to speak? Actually, people fight against this party, but there is also 30, 40, in some regions of the country, 50% who vote for them. And this is really horrible. So the backlash is even getting worse.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to go deeper into that further down our
Mhm.
interview, because it's a pressing topic. I think not just in Germany and here, I'm feeling it too. And it's been a while since I've been back in my home country in Brazil, but I
Mhm.
would bet that we're not isolated. So at some level, it will reach there too. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So really,
I wanted to ask you because one of the topics that you bring in your book as well is the vegan lifestyle, and you make a correlation with the child-free movement. And I wanted to ask you if you can exemplify, clarify what's the relationship between these two choices of life.
I noticed pretty early on into my activism that many of the child-free people are also vegan, and this absolutely makes sense because we are mostly feminists as well. So we don't exploit females of any species. We don't eat them, we don't use them as incubators, etc., etc. So it makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
Having some respect for female cows, humans, cats, whatever, pigs, all the animals. Non-human and human animals can be spared and saved if you don't impregnate them for milk or for kids, animal breeding, etc. Those are all aspects that go into the same direction. And yeah, it makes perfect sense to me if you want to show some consideration for the environment in general and for other living beings who are already here and exist and try not to suffer as well. It makes sense to go vegan and to not have kids because both, yeah, saves carbon emissions and resources, and then everyone has a better life who is already here.
Yes, it seems kind of logical actually if you think about it, that the less amount of people, the less resources and the less impact we have in the environment. So, like, so funny because there's more around 8 billion humans in the world at the moment. And still the
Mhm.
argument that we hear is that we need more babies to avoid extinction. So how the math doesn't math.
Obviously not for some people, and I hate Musk as much as everyone else. I would even say I hate him much more because he's really one of the sources of that horrible, also quite racist pronatalism, which is currently en vogue again globally, sadly. That's due to him. And he says we need more white babies and they are better. So I mean, that tells you everything. You don't have to listen to him any longer than one sentence or 1 minute. And yeah, he doesn't care about the global south at all. He wants them to suffer and their countries to become as hot as a desert so nobody can live there anymore. Well, what does he care? He needs more consumers for his cool cars, etc. And the white babies here in the global north and west are better anyway, so win-win. And that so many people buy into this cruel, sexist, racist, etc. logic really strikes me.
Why do you think that happens? Another argument that I hear a lot about is, and as I mentioned, like we were talking at the beginning of the conversation, I've been getting so many targeted ads and so many like friends and family talking about it because of my age and because of being a woman. I'm just turned 30 this year. And I've been getting this from many places. Some people with good intentions, some people not as much. I don't think somebody who target ads on Instagram to my age group and gender has good intentions, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is still like still happening? People are still buying into this argument that we need to support the global economy and we need to avoid extinction.
Yeah, especially this extinction thing. I can't wrap my hand around that because, as you said, we are growing exponentially and keep growing. And why does anyone talk about extinction? We should talk about animal extinction because this is really indeed right now the sixth mass extinction. So many species die out due to us, and because we kill their habitat and themselves, etc. Blah blah. So who needs animals? Only more and more white babies are what we want. But this is the whole global backlash. People turn right wing and are afraid and scared, and we have all those wars and pandemics and this and that. And then maybe our great home with our own kids is what we want, and this is safety and security, and my husband provides for us, and I don't have to do anything. Also, this trad wife movement and all those horrible things are similar. Why does anyone want that? I really don't get this at all, but yet there are so many popular influences around this topic, and I always wonder, I just don't get it, actually. Yeah.
Yes, the whole tread wife thing. I think we're like seeing more of a leaning into conservative views, not only in politics, but in the general mindset of people.
Mhm.
I don't know why I'm not a historian. I have like some study in social sciences, so I can kind of go that way and find justifications in that way. But it's incredible to see on I'm on TikTok. I see all the videos and people like families with 7+ children, and usually the mother taking care of all of them.
I only read about that because it's really hard to stomach for me. And we have, for instance, a horrible woman who was an AfD politician several years ago. Then she disappeared for some time, and now she's back and wants to found her own Nazi party, Frauke Petri, and she has 5 or 6 kids herself. And it's always those women. And this hurts me even more as if a man like Musk says that, or Trump. If it's a woman who says, "Oh, we need more white babies," this aggressive pronatalist shit out of a female. As Giorgia Meloni in Italy, the head of state, or we have Ursula von der Leyen, 7 kids herself. Why are they into that aggressive breeding, ruining everything? And they want others to suffer a horrible similar fate. And everyone knows, I mean, I write about the risks of pregnancies. One pregnancy can ruin you completely as a woman. Oh, who cares? They want other women to suffer all those terrible consequences as well. This is I really can't wrap my head around that, actually. Why any woman would do propaganda like that.
You mentioned in your book also the
Lantern Publishing and Media is devoted to sharing messages of compassion. Our books inspire a better world by telling the stories of animal rights activists, climate activists, and their fights for a world where everyone can live in harmony, no matter their species. Lantern is a 501c non-for-profit organization. Your donation helps us keep our work going. If you can, go to lanternpm.org/donate to help us with any amount. Once again, the website is lanternpm.org/donate. Your generous gift enables you to support our collective mission to inform, inspire, and educate. Thank you very much.
The risks of pregnancy and the toll it takes on the female body and all that. Cisgender female body. It is, again, as a person who's going through this whole moment in my life right now, it is kind of scary.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, especially in German media, nobody talks about those risks, health risks, etc., risks for the female body. And I have to bring it up all the time, and people don't want to hear about it. Yeah, of course, because it might discourage young women like you from having kids. I'm all about informed choices. And of course, you have to inform the young women and men about all those terrible risks, because some really don't have any clue what they are getting into. They see all those positive pink fluffy ads. Oh, cute baby, haha, magically it was brought by the stork. No, you can even die. We have 36 women in Germany per year who die when they give birth. And this is nowadays, and we are advanced, more or less. I can't believe that. My own friend almost died when she gave birth. That was a shocking experience. She was in coma for 3 months.
Yeah. And even after the baby is born and everything, you're taking care of a human for their whole life. It's a lifelong deal.
Absolutely, you can't give it back. Well, some do. And this Oh God, let me mention fertility capitalism because this is really something we must combat. Uh, we have
Please
lots
do.
again, I can't grasp the idea why you would spend 10,000 euros. It's really quite expensive here. And you spend this to have your own little mini-me. What's wrong with adoption, I wonder? I have a friend who was adopted and she's so annoyed by this development. She always says, well, we have full orphanages and other institutions where people without parents wait for a good home. Well, no, you need your own perfect little mini-me, and it has to have your nose and your blue eyes, because otherwise, well, no, I wouldn't want a baby who is, so to speak, second-hand. That's what one woman told me personally. She said she doesn't buy second-hand clothes, so why should she have a baby? Well, I couldn't believe that. That really tells you a lot about the mindset of those people, if you think about that. She doesn't buy second-hand clothes? Come on, excuse me?
That is shocking.
Mhm. Shocked me as well. But I can use it in lots of interviews. But really, I have no idea what's going on in the mind of people like that. I think it should be forbidden, actually. And that would be possible. But nobody wants that. Far from it. They encourage the opposite. Because, capitalism, etc. And you can earn quite a lot. The desperate couples, oh, we want a baby, our wish to have our own child is so great, and we spend all our money on that. And then they even want pity. But I don't pity them at all, sorry.
I think that's also pretty clear on in your book, and how you go back into this topic of like, I made my choice not to have a child, not to be a parent, and why should I have to sacrifice my comfort and the things I got from that choice to make your life more comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I need to also put it out there. Like, I personally love kids. You're a teacher yourself, and I am one of those people that do not mind if there's a child crying in the cafe. You described the scene that you're like, no,
I
I I,
want to
I
do
don't
that.
mind. I'm usually patient, like in the sense that just it's okay. It's a person in development, and the person doesn't, like, the baby, the child, the toddler is not doesn't understand yet all the
Of course,
codes and so
it's
I'm
fault of the
like
child, of
fine,
course.
but I understand again how stressful it can be, and especially for that case. I think you mentioned. I think it was in your book, because I was also listening to a few podcasts that you participated, so I don't remember exactly where you mentioned this case, but a couple who their neighbor had a newborn, and they were just basically in newborn schedule because of their neighbor's child.
Yeah, well, sometimes, sadly, you can't help but notice that young parents inflict the crying baby on all the others as well, and they seem to enjoy this. And one mom even said, I overheard her personally when she said, well, I always leave the house when she's crying because all the other people can enjoy that too. And that was a really nasty comment. I mean, why does she do that? It's not my fault that she can't use contraception, is it? And there are really many people who
Oh, no.
enjoy crying babies too much. So, yeah. But good for you. It's definitely an advantage if you don't mind.
Good for you. I love the good for you comment. I have two younger siblings. What they're like age gap siblings. So my brother is 17 now, and my little sister is turning 13 this year. So I was there when they were very, very young.
Mhm.
And I remember my brother around 5 or 6. My brother, my mom says that he's an old parent child.
Mhm.
So he was always like, he kept to himself. He wouldn't, like, he would go to adults programs, and he would behave like a mini adult and all that. And then it was funny because we would go out for a restaurant or something, and there was a baby crying or anything, like a child being a child, and he would be just like, children. You're 5 years old. What you're talking about? It's like, children.
Eh.
So yeah, my brother does not have this patience, never did, but
Yeah, and
definitely I do.
yeah, this is a funny story, and this happens from time to time. I saw a 12-year-old outside taking care of his 2-year-old brother or sister, I guess, and he was so patient. I admired that. I thought, ooh, he's like an old man, caring for this little kid. But in general, by the way, of course, it's a gender thing as well, because people react negatively when I, as a woman, say, well, this crying nonstop annoys me. But if my husband says that, it's okay, because men are, it's always okay if they don't like kids or are annoyed by crying babies. But I, as a woman, oh, there must be something wrong with my genes. I must adore crying babies. And this is an anti-feminist thing I don't support at all. That's why I rather be labeled a witch than twisting myself and saying, no, I don't mind. I do mind.
I'm going a little off our script here, but I think when we're talking about feminism, it's a lot about the women's right and possibility to choose. So yes, there are people that don't have a choice. So there are governments that don't allow family planning, that don't allow contraception, that don't allow abortion. That's it. Like, first thing, sometimes it's out of your control. You also have situations of, okay, I'm going to put a trigger warning in the front of this episode because we're going to talk about sensitive topics, but there are situations of sexual abuse, there are situations of rape that, especially in Brazil, for example, abortion is a crime unless in certain specific circumstances. And even so, the conservative senators are trying to kill even that. They're trying to take that out of discussion and criminalize everything. So for cisgender women, for people that can get pregnant, it's just scary to be in a situation like that in which you don't have control over your own body. Because even if you don't want a child, you cannot have a child for economic reasons or whatever. It's not your choice. You can go to jail if you terminate a pregnancy. So there's that. And there is also the people that luckily can choose and they have the right to choose and they just choose not to have the child, and they must be respected the same way as somebody who decides to do it. And I might be off my track here because I'm not a mother, but the moms that I know, they can count with their support system, but they are also very mature to know that the world is not their support system. They have their family, they have their friends who are saying, no, I'm going to help you out with this. But they're not expecting the whole world to be understanding.
Yeah, maybe this is really about the countries, because German parents are really expecting so much, and they already receive so much financially and from society in general. They are really pampered a lot.
Yeah.
And they say, we want more, we want more, we want even more, and everyone has to bow to us, and every whim we utter has to be fulfilled by all the others. And this is what I don't really get, because, yeah, as you said, there are completely different places on earth, and they are already quite privileged, and yet it's never enough for German parents. They want more, more, more. And for instance, we also have a high child benefit, and it even gets more with the second and third and fourth child, whereas in Britain, a cool country, it gets less with the second child, for instance. And in crimes, in crimes, I wanted to say in times of Freud. In times when it's not clear if reproduction is such a great thing, if you think of the ecological climate collapse, catastrophe, not only climate crisis, as I'd say, should we still encourage people to have so many kids? I think rather not so. Why give them tax breaks, etc.? And for instance, child-free single people in Germany, they pay the vast majority of practically everything. They pay for all the things everyone uses, and people with kids, they almost pay nothing. They get tax breaks, child benefit, they get so much. And this is a bit unfair, and many child-free and childless adults agree with me. Why do we support families to such an extent? I'd say it's a bit too much, and it's rather a slap in the face, especially to child-free women, because it's also a favor to right-wing parties, to the patriarchy, if you let yourself be used as an incubator, and you contribute to overpopulation, we use all the resources, etc., and you create new suffering, so all quite negative things, and then people are rewarded for that. For me, it doesn't really make sense.
We know the vegan activist community is out there, and we want to connect with each and every one of you. We are proud supporters of initiatives that fight for a more compassionate world for all animals, humans and non-humans alike. For more content on vegan activism, follow Lantern on social media. We are Lantern Publishing and Media on Facebook, at Lantern PM on Instagram, and at Lantern PM Official on TikTok.
I remember talking to my mom about European birth incentives when I was in high school, and that was like early 2010s. So it was a slightly different reality to the one that we have now. It was before the war in Syria. It was before the refugee crisis that Europe faced after that happened, and after the bunch of wars and conservative-leaning governments that we've been seeing now. It was a different world in 2010, I think, 2009,
Yeah.
2010.
Yeah.
And I remember that what my mom talked to me was like, Europe has these incentives because their population is growing older and they don't have anybody to pay for the retirement of the older people. And then you have a refugee crisis happening with people that want to immigrate and they want to be working people in this country. They're not white, but they're coming over, and that would solve, in my mind, in
Yeah,
my
of
logic,
course.
again, not a state person, not a stateswoman, but in my mind, that would solve the issue
Yeah.
without having to have the
It really would.
incentives for,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
That's
I
what I
don't know.
keep.
Am I correct? Am I saying something that
No, that would be absolutely it, and that's what I'm always advocating for, because it's our fault if several other countries are not inhabitable anymore. But what do we say? No, please, refugees keep out, because we have a conservative government now, and they want us to have our own babies, especially to keep those refugees out. Hungary does that. Orban is exactly like this. And everyone wants to have more native kids in order to keep those who are not white and not so cool and not really cultivated. And do we need them? Well, rather not. Please stay away. And this is absolutely horrible. And also, I'd say, really criminal, because you can't turn people away at the border. If you destroy their habitat, like with the animals, you make their life absolute shit. And then you say, well, but we don't care for you. We have our own people and problems, and you want this and we do that. And you can just piss off. This is completely irresponsible. I never get how people can say to me, well, you only want Africans to come here. That's what I sometimes get. Yeah, well, okay, because it's our duty. If the country is not a country to live in anymore and it's our fault, then of course I want those people here. And as you say, they can work here, and especially this retirement aspect. I get this all the time. But frankly asking, if our air gets worse and worse and people have more and more asthma, allergies, etc., or diseases, etc., if we don't have clean air or water or any cool resources we need anymore, do we need retirement or pension plans? I don't think so, because we won't survive anyway. Only Musk and his kids in a bunker, they will survive. But us poor people, they will suffocate having fun picking our food on rubbish, tips, whatever. Wow. I won't think about retirement plans or pension funds then, I can assure you of that. So this is really a bit short-sighted. And it can't go on like that. There are more creative ways of structuring this. And also an important aspect would be, why use those kids? They are always used as instruments. They should pay the tax, they should pay for the retirement and pension plans, they should solve problems they didn't create, they should. And they should please the parents who are a bit bored and want a little mini-me. This is quite a lot of pressure and negativity for those poor innocent new beings, I'd say.
you mentioned in your book that there are many famous personalities. You mentioned Dr. Jane Goodall, you mentioned other folks that are talking about this and are talking about the impact. But you also say that there's no government that has I'm going to call it philosophy, but like a plan for diminishing their birth rate. It's always like to make more babies and not to make less. Do you know if there's any plans out there, even if it's formalized by a government? Maybe there's a country that would be an example somewhere, or an institution, or maybe a group of activists. Do you know if there's like a plan to manage population growth that has been created, or if there isn't, which elements would be necessary to create a plan in that regard?
I think the only hope is Korea, South Korea, because there most people want to stay child-free, and all the other countries are beyond hope, really, because there'll never be a majority for being child-free or having less kids to save the environment or anything else. And so politicians have to serve the majority. They want to get elected. I get that. So of course, it's obvious they'll never support the child-free lifestyle. They always support people who want to have kids, and it maybe makes sense in an economic way, they think. And if you lose voters, well, nobody will do that. But so South Korea already has a young majority people. I think it was couples in their 20s or 30s, newly married couples who said 51 or 53%, we don't want to have kids. So that might be a hope because there it's already a majority. But as long as you piss off the majorities, no country will ever do that. So we have at least something. We have population matters or population counts or population balance. Cool institutions, for instance, in the UK, David Attenborough and Jane Goodall are, I think, the patrons of population matters, and they do some really amazing actions. I always admire that. For instance, they floated a big baby and a balloon and said, "Guess my weight in CO2." And that was so cool. Nobody would ever do that here. It would be an unimaginable shitstorm in Germany if you floated a big baby with a diaper that said, "Guess my weight in CO2." You couldn't do that ever. But the British people, always cool and funny, they had no problem doing that. And somehow it works. And I really admire them. So, yeah, and we have all those online groups, of course. There is Stop Having Kids and some interesting internatalist groups, or Amanda Sukinik, who has her podcast. Yeah, but that's not much. And actually, we would need more support of those groups, of course, because if only 2 people per country support them, yeah, they won't get anywhere. And as long as people like Musk have so much power and influence billions, it's really hard to fight back.
Because it sounds to me that there's more action into letting people know and giving people information and knowledge about what is the meaning for the environment to bring a new person into the world. And maybe that is like the initial phase of people being aware of the choices that they're making and of the impact that children, especially children in the so-called developed countries, have in the
Yeah,
world.
I'm often shocked when I mention, for instance, young journalists interviewed me recently, and they didn't know the iPad slogan. Impact consists of population, affluence, and technology. And I thought everyone would know that, but obviously not. And so I keep informing people about basic knowledge concerning this, or also the chart. Which also has nice visuals and informs you that using no plastic bags is maybe not that great impact. But people here are also misinformed, really. Our newspapers say, well, use your car only once a week or eat a bit less meat and wash your clothes in colder water, and you have saved the planet. And I think this is really irresponsible as well, because they always keep out the biggest individually possible contribution you can make. But as it's so highly popular and keeps being so, people are often afraid to mention it because, yeah, they don't like shitstorms. I do, but some others don't. Yeah.
Since we're talking about pronatalist governments and pronatalist actions, can you define to us what are the actions of a pronatalist government?
We have lots of child benefit and even extra money. For instance, if you work for the state, you get additional bonuses, so to speak, for every child you have. And this is really a bit. I'm always rewarded of our real Nazis who had this Mother Cross, and they awarded a medal for moms of 4 or 5 or 6 kids in bronze, silver, or even gold. And this is so degrading to women because you see that nobody cares about you. You are only good if you are an incubator. And this is actually one of my 3 most important motivations not to do that, because I'm a person with a personality and many talents and interests. And I don't want to be degraded to biological functions. I mean, I don't get rewarded for eating or popping to the loo or sleeping. This is actually also a basic biological function, and not anything you should get high rewards, tax breaks, etc. And all those infrastructures. Yeah, it's basically a red carpet people roll out for parents. And in our times of the ecological crisis, I can't stop from wondering if this is still the right way to go about it.
If you're a human being living in the 21st century, chances are that you check your email every day. Also, chances are that your inbox is constantly pretty full. We know how important it is to keep up to date with things that matter. This is why our newsletter is so amazing. We only send one newsletter a month, and within it, you'll find all our latest news and, sometimes, access to exclusive content. Recently, we went through all our contacts and did a huge cleanup, trying our best to make sure that no one is in the list multiple times and no one's going to keep getting tons of emails. We want to keep you informed without overwhelming you with 1,000 messages. We know you don't have time to waste with 100 new emails. Give your time to what really matters. Go to lanternpm.org and sign up for our newsletter today.
And we were talking about South Korea earlier, and there's the, is it 4B
Yeah, it's the
movement?
14. Yeah.
When I first read about that, I was very interested because it's a very powerful way to protest, I feel, against sexism, against the patriarchy, and against men in general. Like, oh, you're not going to give women rights? Okay, we're not going to have children anymore. We're not going to get married anymore. We're not going to be with you all anymore.
Yeah.
And that is a very interesting reaction. I bet that it's not easy for them. I bet that not they must get so many like psychological pressures, and they put themselves at risk of, again, sexual assault. I bet.
Mhm.
But it's a very interesting, and it sounds like it's effective from what I've been reading.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. I admire that so much. And it's radical, but I love radical, so I can relate completely. And I'm currently with a great feminist man, okay, so I won't ditch him. But my next partner might as well be a woman again, and also feminist, obviously. And it's really so cool. I admire those South Korean feminist activists who do the For Me movement. And I mean, it's nothing new. Birth strike is such an old concept also. Lysistrata, that was Euripides back the ancient Greeks, and that was effective as well. Or in our High Middle German literature, it's a classic almost, that women say, no, don't touch us. We want this. We want the war to stop. We want this. We want that. And as long as you don't behave in a way that makes sure we get what we want, you can just whatever you want to do if you don't have access, so to speak, to us. And yeah, why not? I'm surprised that not more people opt for that, actually, because it's, as you said, effective and cool and edgy and radical. I'm all in favor.
Yes, they're very brave. They sound very brave. My next question, we were talking about, I said in the beginning we would go back and dive deeper into the relationship between conservative governments, also called right wing governments, encouraging cisgender women, and, well, they don't believe in the existence of non-cisgender people, of trans folk. But let's just say people that can get pregnant, especially cisgender women, to have children. And in your book, you say, if your own numbers are up, you have the best excuse to keep the others out. And you said that in this podcast, in this interview today already.
Yeah.
So I feel like conservative governments are usually elected under the promise of discouraging immigration and prioritizing domestic economy of a country. And you have a whole chapter on your book dedicated to politics, one specifically on right-wing parties and their leaders. In today's world, I'm sorry about the emotions that I will write because I know that we get very angry about certain things. But in today's world, how's that relationship going?
It's really, as one friend in Massachusetts told me, you were prophetic when you wrote this in 2022, because now it's even worse. as I already said, we have Trump. You have Trump back and Vance. I especially hate this guy and the childless cat lady thing and all the things he wrote about Taylor Swift and Kamala Harris, of course, and all those horrible childless cat ladies. So this is exactly what I'm saying. See, I want to shout, see what I said. It's right. It's even worse than I imagined. Also in Russia, by the way, they passed a law meanwhile several months ago. So child-free propaganda is not allowed anymore. And you get hefty fines if you promote the child-free lifestyle. Yeah, Putin's latest idea because he needs more soldiers. And this is so obvious. And really, I can't believe it. And also in Italy, I wrote about Matteo Salvini, this right-wing guy and his family Congress. And now we have Giorgia Meloni as the real head of state. And she also says we need more Italian babies because all those other shitty black babies, they can stay in their shithole countries. Please don't come to our great country and destroy it by not working and raping our blonde women. That's really the rhetoric they use. And people buy into that. They vote for these guys. So it's even more important to fight back whenever we can, however, in whatever form this might take, because it's really quite incredible. And also young teenagers here. I know students who say, yeah, but I don't want that many foreigners to come here. And why is that? This is a sudden, horrible backlash and a right turn to the right. Yeah, it's like overnight. It happened overnight because it was oh so woke and progressive before. Well, I didn't think that it was, by the way, but obviously for some it appeared like that. And now we get this, we don't want this and that anymore. For instance, also here in Bavaria, we have a very conservative government and we had this inclusive language so we could address more genders. And this is now forbidden as well since 1 year. We are not allowed to do this anymore. Okay, yeah, let's just ignore people who are non-binary. Who needs those guys? Let's have them up in the trees committing suicide. This is really what those politicians, they don't say it like that, but almost. And this is really crass and cruel and I'd say again criminal. But not many people care. Sometimes, somehow people think, oh, well, we have men and women and that's it. So this binary scheme is what they all want. And again, this leads to more children because only men and women mating isn't that perfect. And who needs those queer people anyway? This is absolutely horrible. For instance, transphobia, the origin of that is in mom's net. Well, that tells you a lot, I'd say, because they want their kids to have working reproductive organs so that I can become a grandmother. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, well, please, come on.
Yeah, we were talking about this. It's a topic that personally enraged me so much. But
Mhm.
if you think about those conservative leaning governments, it's easier to think of them as almost Disney-like villains. So like they're
Mm.
evil. But if you think about it, it's not just evil. It is more, there's a logic behind this incentive of having
Yeah.
children that are children of your own country, of your own color. There is a logic of having
Mhm.
not having support. Because at the same time, here in the US, what I hear a lot in Germany, you mentioned that there's a lot of incentive for parents. In here, there is a incentive for people to get pregnant, but after that,
Mhm.
you're on your own.
Yeah.
So even people who buy into the whole, either who buy into the whole propaganda, or people who just really want to have kids, or people who ended up with a child, when the child is actually born, there is
Yes.
there is
Yeah.
no maternity leave, there's no paternity leave, there is like health insurance is crazy expensive, and they have to figure out on their own. And what we see, coming from the background, the academic background that I come from, that it's applied social sciences, communications, and etc. What we see historically when we study about this government is that that way you can ensure that you have cheap labor and you can
Yeah, of
have
course.
a lot of people
Mm.
or people to go to the war,
Yeah.
that will be willing to go to the war because they need
Mhm.
food, they need to pay their like help their families to survive.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
So it's not, because it's the one thing that kind of sets apart. If you have a platform of government that is to everyone fend for themselves, but you also have a platform that says, no, we're pro life, the pro life thing bugs me so much because, like, that's not pro-life. That's pro-birth.
That's absolutely horrible. I hate those guys as well. And exactly, that's what I called more consumers, more soldiers. That's really easy to grasp. And I really wonder why not more people see through that, because it's so obvious. And they even admit that. Putin himself said he needs more soldiers for his war. So please, Russian women, have kids. I can't believe this. This is incredible. And the cheap labor, as you said, exactly those two aspects. Or the kids have to pay the retirement and pension, whatever, for their parents, in fact, or have to take care of their parents. Well, they are not there for that. Yeah, I don't get this at all. But this is quite a common topic, and more people seem to enjoy this and embrace this wholeheartedly. I don't know why.
Do you love new books? Do you need more titles about veganism, animal rights, and climate activism on your bookshelf? Then go to lanternpm.org and check out all our books and ebooks available for purchase. You can find anything from beautiful illustrated picture books that introduce children to the values of compassion for our fellow animals, to thoroughly researched nonfiction books that give you all the facts to help you live a healthy vegan life. Go to lanternpm.org and explore all of our books today.
In the United States now, I see they're kicking out the immigrants. There are people who are willing to do cheap work because when you're starting out your life from scratch in a new country, you're willing to do cheap work. Encouraging people to have children, not supporting healthcare or parents or families in any way. That if everything goes according to plan, and also kicking out a bunch of people who work in the public service, federal employees are getting dismissed from their jobs. So you're going to have the cost of labor is going to fall. And it's not something that I'm like a conspiracy theorist or anything. It's one of the government platforms. They said that they wanted to reduce the cost of labor in the country. And that's why they have all this actions that they're taking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit similar here, and everyone. Yeah, my friend from Massachusetts told me that as well, that only immigrants do the job the others don't want to do. And we have the same problem. All my students, they want to become this and that and earn quite a lot. And I wonder who will do the other jobs if you don't have all those immigrants from Eastern Europe, for instance, anymore. We need those guys. Oh, well, AI will take over. I'm not so sure. Not every job can or should be replaced by AI. But also, on the other hand, we have AI robots who could care for older people, for instance. So nobody has to do this job many people don't like anyway anymore. So we even need less people again. We don't need so many people either that way or that way. Just saying. But yeah. And again, I always feel the kids should be used for purposes. They are personalities, and what we do to them is make them suffer, make them work as wage slaves, so to speak, and we put them under a lot of pressure. And what awaits them? Climate change, diseases, horrible pressure, competition, this, that, wars. Is this really a cool world to bring a new person into? I don't think so.
And there is a book there that reminds me all the time I read when I was younger. It's a book for teenagers written by Justin Gardner, the same author of Sophie's World. He wrote a book called The World According to Anna. I'm not sure if you heard of this, but it's the story of a girl. She starts having dreams with her granddaughter, and it's a whole discussion of how the world will be when somebody who was 16, I think in 2010, 11, I don't remember exactly when the book came out, by the time that their grandchildren are in the world, how is the world that we're leaving for our grandchildren? And it's a whole discussion of like, grandma, why am I even here? That the granddaughter puts.
Yeah, the whole antinatalist philosophy tells us to refrain from having kids anyway, even if that was a perfect world, because we always create more suffering. And we have all those horrible states of mind, and everyone says, well, that doesn't count. Well, it does. More than 50% of a day are you're bored or tired or do things you don't really want to do. You just have to do. You're ill, you're lovesick, you're this, you're that. You have all kinds of problems. And the great things are maybe not that much. So, as David Benatar says, better never to have been because nothing gets lost, so to speak. But if we have people here who suffer immensely, and I really argue a child born now will suffer horribly. I see them living in a world without real light, air, food, etc. Think if they turn 100, the whole world will actually be a horrible place because we don't have ecosystems anymore right now. Everything is dying here, and climate change, for instance, hit really hard here. And I wonder what kind of place they'll have to live in.
These are all topics that you bring in your book. We talked about the activism itself. We talked about the relationship with veganism, the relationship of pro-natalist governments, far-right governments. We talked about so many aspects that the child-free movement touches. And the title of your book pertains to an adult sex life. It's Do Child-Free People Have Better Sex? That's the title of your book. So my question would be, do child people have better sex? First question, answering the question of your book. And two, did you bring this as the title to call people's attention for something that's way bigger than just their sex life?
Well, I start with the actual question, and I would say yes. And even many people who are parents confirm that, by the way, because then they, for instance, say, especially if the child is quite small and maybe even sleeps in your bed and there's nothing going on for months. And there is even this British saying to open the nurseries, to close the bedroom, because you really have other things to do. And especially the mother has lots of physical stress. And should she have been unlucky and have one of those complications or negative consequences of the birth, they often suffer horribly or for years to come. For instance, lots of women are incontinent afterwards. And I can imagine that might affect any other activities in a rather negative way as well. Or having to think about the child's future all the time. And one mom I know is so worried all the time that she just can't relax anymore. And she says, since she has had this baby, she is not herself anymore. And this is quite a sad sentence. And this concerns her whole life, obviously, not only the sex part of it, but that too. And then she says she has to organize to get away and then organize a grandmother or a babysitter or whatever. And then in 3 months' time, they have a romantic date. And then, of course, she has to be in the mood because then otherwise she would have to wait again for months. And actually, it sounds horrible. And I wouldn't want that at all because you can't be spontaneous anymore. You have to plan everything and your mind is really somewhere else. But so I'd say it has lots of advantages also in this department. If you're child-free, definitely I can vouch for that myself. The title, yeah, well, I don't remember how we came to choose this title. I think it was some kind of joint decision. And of course, I was thinking marketing and maybe maybe it would grab people's attention. But yeah, actually, it's about why child-free people have a better life in general. Also, as we said, ecologically, politically, concerning feminism, philosophically, etc. And the sex part is only a small but important part of that.
It is very effective, the choice of the title. Every time that we have an event or we go table with our book somewhere and we bring your book, people always grab it. People are always like, wait, what? I think the only thing that I wanted to say before we wrap this up is I think one thing that you hit a lot on your book is that we're not trying to be disrespectful to parents, to children, to people who didn't have a choice to have a child or who ended up choosing and they're like, we're gonna do it. It is you have mom friends, you work with
Yeah.
kids. I have mom
Oh,
friends
I also
and
have,
I
yes.
work with kids in my past. We see the struggle. We know that it's not easy. We know that they need the support and sometimes they do not get the support. I think the point here is to inform people that are still on the fence, or people that maybe only got a single discourse their entire lives, to consider something else that might be good not only for their lives, but for the whole world and for the children that are already here.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I say this all the time myself, also in my Swiss column, I write about that there are parents and parents. And there's a huge gap between one and the other. There are the cool parents who totally get what I do and who are my friends and support me and I support them, blah, blah. And there are the haters, though, and they really write shitty mails to especially female child-free activists, including rape and death threats. And this is just criminal, misogynistic behavior. And I really hate those dads. And I should actually go to the police and show them some of the mails I get from some of those great fathers. And I do criticize those. Of course I do. But as I said, I differentiate a lot. And I'm not talking to people or about people who are already here and existing. As you said, I'm talking to, for instance, people your age who are wondering, should we do this or not? And then I can offer the perspective, which is not often offered anyway, which is quite a pity. Informing, for instance, the female about possible consequences. Would you really want to happen this to your body? Blah, blah, blah. Basic things like that. That's the whole point.
Verena, before I let you go, is there anything else you would like to say to our listeners? Any projects you've been working on? Any links you would like me to add to the podcast description?
Well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a pretty homepage, so you could maybe add those things. And by the way, I have a new German book. I actually have 4 child-free books, meanwhile, yours, and the famous German one, and 2 other German ones, the Childfree Rebellion, and the latest one, which was published in Germany in 2023. And I'm actually still looking for a publisher who would maybe want a translation. I could do that myself, as I studied English and German and philosophy. And it's the German title translates as Non-Parents of the World Unite. So this draws heavily on Marx, obviously, because it's his famous slogan. And I write about Shulamit Firestone and Simone de Beauvoir and other great feminist activists of past and present who also advocate for the child-free lives. That might be cool.
Yes, definitely. I will, once we're done here with the recording, I'll send you an email and I'll ask for all the links and confirmation so I can put everything here in the podcast description so people can access and get in touch. Sounds great. Well, Verena, thank you very much for being here with us today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this great chat. And I'll see you out there.
I enjoyed that. Thank you. Let's be in touch. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Lantern Voices. If you want to read Verena's book, you can order a physical copy from your favorite place to get books. The books page on our website will be linked in the description, and you can check it out. We have links for Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere that the book is available. Depending where you are in the world, getting a physical copy of the book might be harder, but you know what can be delivered worldwide with just a click? Ebooks. And great news, Lantern Voices listeners get 25% off any ebook ever featured in our podcast if you buy them from our ebook store. Just go to lanternpm.org and select ebook store on our main menu. Look for the book's title, so in the case of this episode, Do Child-Free People Have Better Sex? Or any other book ever featured in the podcast. When you're ready to check out, add the coupon Lantern Voices 25. That is Lantern Voices, like the podcast name, and the numbers 2 and 5. All together, no spaces. We are past 10 episodes of our podcast, and we're seeing our online community grow. It brings us so much joy. So if you're here with us, please rate our podcast, leave a comment, share it with your friends. That really, really helps us grow and reach more people. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at LanternPM. We're also coming up with a Patreon account that will have some exclusive benefits for people who want to contribute financially to our work here at Lantern. So stay tuned. Thank you again for joining us, and we will talk to you again next month. Bye!